good to meet with you. Today we want to talk, my buddy and I, Leonardo. We want to talk to you about a little bit about art. We like our art very much. We don't get along too well, but that's okay. We eat gelato together. We love bread and all them other things. But let him tell you some of the great things he did. I cannot tell you myself. Go ahead, Leonardo.
I am the great Leonardo da Vinci, the Renaissance man of my time. Yes, I lived in places such as Florence, Venice, and Rome, and there created many, many things. You see, I was not just an artist. I was good in many things. I was good as a medical person. I was good in building airplanes and helicopters, even the parachute that comes out of the airplane. My only problem is that sometimes it was hard to finish some of the work, and yet still, from all of the 5,000 pages of medical journals and many, many things that I developed with astronomy and all of the different things with mathematics and science and also a musical instruments man.
That's why I could not introduce him. Because he's too busy doing too many things, and I'm out working making art. I work really hard. I walk every morning. I walk over to the Sistine Chapel for 4 years, every day, early in the morning, and I arrive, and I paint. I bend over backwards to paint the painting on the ceiling.
And who would lie on his back for 4 years, I wonder?
I did not lie down on the job. I did the job standing and leaning backwards, and you guys, you get everything backwards.
Well, at least the painting, that was probably the best thing he did. But the sculpture, that was the lowest form of artwork possible.
Yeah.
How could he think that it was a worthwhile vocation in his life? How could he look at himself when he got up in this morning?
Let me tell you, when you could take a hammer and you hit 7 times, and you rest 7 times, you create genius work like I create all a day.
And you also create stink because you sweat too much.
Yeah. Well, I don't have time to bath. In Europe, once a week, me 2 times a month are plenty. I gotta get the work done. It takes 3 years to do the Pieta. 3 years. I only 19 when I want to start the work. I finish it when I am 23. Very famous piece. You ought to go look at it, Leonardo.
There were several things that you probably did that might be considered worthy, but think about my painting of The Last Supper. The first time in the history of art when 12 men had been painted around a table with Christ being the centerpiece. The first time when they had been situated in such a place behind the table and at the ends where it worked, where it flowed, and where I painted it on a big wall, a damp wall. No one else said I could paint it on that wall, but I painted it, and it worked.
Fallen off.
Well, we repaired it, and it lives down to this day. It's quite a famous piece, you know.
I would say it's a famous. But I do like your Mona Lisa. She is a very pretty girl.
Oh, Mona Lisa. She is a beautiful girl. The most beautiful I think I've ever seen. So beautiful, I could never get her quite right. I worked on her year after year, diddling and dabbling here and there, trying to get it just perfect, but the anatomy, the expression on her face, the lighting that fell on her eyes. To try to do such a thing and never get it right, quite right, was frustrating.
Yeah, you keep at it for 5 years. I never keep any of the paintings. The Pope, he hired me. The Medicis, they hired me. Everybody want to hire Michelangelo because I'm such a good artist and I work hard.
Oh, yes. You were kept, mind you, by the church. Yes, you know what they say about that filthy lucre that you earned from your church work, but he worked for Pope Julius and several of the other archbishops, you know. I mostly worked with the business community and with people, merchants, who liked my painting. I was not bought by the church in my life.
Well, the church, they like me very much. They're giving me full-time employment. I tell the Pope, I'm no painter, I tell him. I want me to be a sculptor. I want to sculpt. I'm no paint. He say, you do the Sistine Chapel. You don't have to put up with the headache of the Pope like I do.
Yes, he may be a headache, but you sell yourself for your art. Whereas I go out and explore so many things besides my art. Life is not just about art, and art is about everything else. Art is about architecture. It is about mechanical things. It is about the human body, the masterpiece of all time. And it is I who created some of the great drawings of the anatomy, the drawings that have been used throughout the ages and still today are a model for many of the sciences and medical arts. Yes, there are other things besides art.
Yes, but you cannot worship the Lord in Rome unless you go to the building that I built, the chapel there, the cathedral. That is a bigger building. That is a really bigger building, a 2 football fields long, 450 feet up to the dome, and all fresco. No fresco, I mean, all just little tiny pieces of rock to make it a picture. We call it, I can't remember. I am so aggravated. I can't remember what it is. I'm trying to think, but it is mosaic. That's what it is. So we don't hang none of your paintings in there. We don't have none of these in the Sistine, in this chapel.
Yes, you have all of those sculptures. How many of them are there? I can't remember. There are too many. Just remember that sculpture is the lowest form of art. And then you never even finished it. Pope Julius, I believe, he would never even let you finish it because even he probably thought that you needed to be working on the painting of the Sistine Chapel. Now that was something a little more worthwhile.
Well, it wouldn't have been so bad, but 25 years after I finished the Sistine Chapel, he called me back and say, put on the Last Judgment. That take a whole another 2 years to paint the other end of the thing. And I try all along to do his funeral tombstone, 35, 40 feet tall, and I finished the Moses. And he calls me off to paint more. I can't understand the Pope.
And I can't understand you and your passion for the marble. Always you're out looking for large pieces of marble in the mountainsides. Always you're out searching and never fulfilling anything in your life. Your relationships, you never get them to work. You're always working 20, 25 hours a day, if it were possible, on your work. What is there to that life?
Well, I did not always go out to the quarry to pick my stone up. Here a few years ago, I took a piece of stone that 2 or 3 sculptors that screwed up, and I take that stone and I work on it, and I make the David out of.
But the painting, the Last Supper, the Mona Lisa, the Virgin at the Rocks, those are the epitome of what I would call great art. Learning the uses of the oils, learning what will dry on different frescoes and different surfaces and make them work. It's the new thought that I sought in my lifetime.
Have you not seen some of my old paintings? They're very beautiful, like your work. It's very nice. But I like some of the writing you do. I like some of the other things you've really done very well, and I would like to say thank you for that.
Well, you are very kind. I only wish that I had been able to finish all of my writings. I began to get old, and I had my stroke when I was 65, and I looked around me, and I thought of all the things that I had started and done in my lifetime, and never could end up quite finishing, and I felt like a failure. And how could I feel like a failure when I had done so many things, when I had studied every pattern of thought possible, every expression of art, every expression of living, but I couldn't quite finish it. There was too much.
But I would live on. I would live to be 89. And I would take a lot of your ideas and I would complete them. I would do all kinds of things. I work on my last sculpture piece for 2 days before I die. I work right up to the last minute. I'm very fortunate. Because I did the dirty work, I work very hard on sculpture.
And maybe it kept your body active, working on all those things. But you did live to be quite longer than normal years for our time. Did not you live into your 80s and have time to accomplish so many more things? In fact, if it were in modern times, perhaps you would have been called a superstar because of the great wealth that you accumulated.
Yeah.
But the de Medicis had problems with you from time to time because you were so picky about what you did. But me, myself, at least I gathered the relationships of people around me, and I was a friend of King Francis I, and it was his arms in which I died and finally found my rest.
But you must remember, I start in the de Medici family's home. They take me in when I'm 14. I know all of the poets in town. I know all of the writers. I know all of the artists every night. He liked me so well I ate next to him every day. And when I create one sculpture piece in the garden and put it there with the others, he look at it and he say, "This are very good, but something this old would not have this kind of lips and teeth." So the next day when he comes through, he look at it and I make it old teeth and bad lips. And he liked me from then on, but he died 2 years later.
But did he like you, or did he like what you did for him?
What difference does it make?
It is relationships. It is the ability to deal with people, and all you dealt with was your work. Day in and day out, late into the night, you never took a time for people.
Well, I tell you this, I'm going to call it time, and we will go get some ice cream, some gelato, and let's celebrate our work in Florence and Rome.
La donna è mobile, qual piuma al vento, muta d'accento e di pensiero.